Hey, what's going on, Who Dat Nation? Welcome to another edition of the State of the Saints podcast, where we talk New Orleans Saints. My name is TJ Jones. Thanks for checking out the podcast. I really do appreciate it. Well, Who Dat Nation, day one of Saints training camp 2019 is in the books. The black and gold took the practice field for the first time this season, but first we have to talk about a player that didn't take the field. I'm talking about wide receiver Michael Thomas. Now, you already know that Michael Thomas is holding out. He has not reported to training camp. He is holding out, and he is waiting on a long-term deal. According to sources, Michael Thomas is looking for $20 to $22 million per year. And a lot of people in the Who Dat Nation have been chiming in about Michael Thomas. They have been talking about, does he deserve $20 million? Is he a top 5 receiver? Is he a top 10 receiver? Is he elite? Is he not elite? Heck, I even see some Atlanta Falcons and some Carolina Panthers fans commenting, which I don't understand, because if I was an Atlanta Falcon fan, I would be more focused on not looking as pathetic as I've been for the past 2 seasons. And I definitely would be more worried about possibly beating the Saints, because the Falcons haven't beaten the Saints since 2017. Ouch. And not to mention the Carolina Panthers, man. I would be more focused on if Cam Newton can hit his wide open receiver instead of the Gatorade out of bounds. But back to Michael Thomas. Michael Thomas' contract, does he deserve $20 million? In my opinion, I think he does, because if you look at his numbers, he put up historic numbers. Now, I know you don't want to hear this, Who Dat Nation. Some of you don't. But Michael Thomas is an elite receiver. He has been for the past 3 seasons. He has been in the league 3 years, and every single year he has gotten better and better. And he deserves his money. And the New Orleans Saints need to pay him his money so he can come to camp, because it's important, man. It's important to the chemistry of the team. I mean, you can say it's not a distraction, but it is. The majority of the questions that were asked today were about Michael Thomas. So getting this guy inside of the facility and on the practice field needs to be important. Does he deserve $20 million? I think so. Okay, I think he deserves it. And I know a lot of people are saying that the Saints offered him $19 million, but sources were saying that it was mostly incentive-based. And this man don't want an incentive-based contract, and I don't blame him. He wants a guaranteed contract. When you're dealing with incentives, you have to reach certain goals and milestones in order to get that money. And that's not fair to me, because you can have I guess like an incentive bonus if you catch 100 catches, right? Let's just use that for example. Let's just say that Michael Thomas has in his contract, if he catches 100 balls, he gets an extra $1 million. Let's just say he goes 15 games, he goes 15 games, and he goes to week 17, and he is 3 catches away from 100, but he catches 2. He doesn't receive that $1 million. How fair is that? I mean, these guys want guaranteed money. Nobody in no major sport puts their body on the line like NFL players. So I feel like they deserve their guaranteed money just as much as a basketball player or a baseball player. I feel like football players don't get a fair shake, man. We hear about these 6-year, $100 million contracts with $40 million guaranteed, but $60 million of it being incentives, and it be money that these guys never get. All I have to say, New Orleans Saints organization, please pay Michael Thomas so he can get out there and be a part of something special, which is the New Orleans Saints this season. But let's talk about what happened in practice. Let's talk about training camp, man. A lot of storylines. We can talk about so many things. We can talk about Drew Brees, how good he looked today. We can talk about how some of the new faces like Latavius Murray, or we can talk about some of these other guys out here. But we have to start with rookie Emmanuel Butler. Now, if you don't know who Emmanuel Butler is, I encourage you to go check this guy out, man. I seen some YouTube highlights on him, and I must say, man, I'm really impressed. This guy is 6'4", 225 pounds, and he was to start training camp on day one. He caught a pass from Taysom Hill, and he went up high to get it, and it really just oohed and eyed the crowd because of it. And Sean Payton was ranting and raving about him after practice during a press conference, but a lot of people are interested to see how he's going to do in full pads. I mean, of course, today it was the first day of practice, so all they had on was shoulder pads, but he showed out. And that's the kind of stuff you like to hear, man. That shows that the future is promising for the New Orleans Saints. I mean, once again, this guy's 6'4", 225 pounds, and I mean, he's raw right now. Coach Curtis Johnson is coaching him up, and who's to say if Coach Curtis can coach this guy up? Who knows what this guy can be? But, I mean, it's really up to Emmanuel Butler. I mean, we don't want to hear another situation like Brandon Coleman. Okay, every single year, Brandon Coleman has a good camp. How many times have we heard that? Brandon Coleman had a great camp. Brandon Coleman, what a catch. And then when you get to the regular season, he does absolutely nothing. Emmanuel Butler has an opportunity, and it's really up to Emmanuel Butler if he can get it done. Because there are a lot of players at the wide receiver position that are jockeying for position. So many guys that are trying to get a roster spot. You got Rashard Matthews, a guy who's a seasoned veteran, 8 years in the league. You got players like Simi Cobb, a guy that was picked up from the Washington Redskins in the middle of last season. He's trying to prove himself. You got Keith Kirkwood, Austin Carr, Cam Meredith, he's on the hot seat. You got Ted Ginn Jr. still trying to prove that he has something left in the tank. So many unanswered questions. So Emmanuel Butler can't let up. He's the guy everybody's talking about right now, but it's really up to him to keep them talking by continuously getting better and making plays. And we got to talk about the secondary. The secondary had a very, very good practice. They were generating turnovers throughout the day. I seen some footage of Von Bell stripping the ball out of a wide receiver's hands. That's what you want to see. You want to see your secondary being opportunistic. I mean, you look at guys who played together all this time. People like Marshawn Lattimore, Von Bell, Marcus Williams. These guys are going into their third year together, so you know the chemistry is good. You know that these guys understand one another. You add Eli Apple. This is his first training camp with the New Orleans Saints. So you put all these guys together, you have to be excited. And not to mention some of those young, hungry rookie secondary players like Shaquan Hampton and Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. These guys are trying to prove that they can be a part of the starting rotation. And so the future is really, really bright for the New Orleans Saints. And all of this stuff that the media talking about, the windows are closing, I have to beg to differ. Because if you look around, for the exception of Drew Brees, you have to admit that the New Orleans Saints are looking pretty damn good. But I would like to hear from you. What do you think about Saints training camp day one? And what do you think about Michael Thomas holding out? Comment down below. Like and share this video. This has been the State of the Saints podcast. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel, youtube.com. Search the State of the Saints podcast. And previous episodes are available on iTunes, Spotify, and iHeartRadio.com. Till next time, all I have to say is, who dat?